Hi everyone. In this lecture, we will be going to start with the chapters of CD Sharma. In the last chapter, we saw some basics about philosophy. We came to know about terms like metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and from now on, we will see what different schools of Indian philosophy said what. So, my focus is to be very focused, laser focused on what is in the UPSC syllabus. So, I will always show you the syllabus, I will always show you the PYQs, and I will clearly show you what things there are which are important in the book. So, okay, let's get started then. First, I want to show you the chapters that are there in CD Sharma, and not all of them are in the syllabus, not all of them are important. I just want to go through it quickly so that you get a gist of it, that what chapters are important. So, these first two chapters, Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, are not in our syllabus. Then, from this third chapter, Materialism, which is also called as Charvak school, this is there. Jainism is there, early Buddhism is there, Shunyavad, Vigyanvad, Swatantra Vigyanvad. These three chapters are given in great detail in CD Sharma. They are not required in that much detail, but still these are in syllabus. So UPSC can ask some random kind of question deep within from these chapters, but we will not go into that much detail because it is not required and the cost to benefit ratio will not be there. Then Sankhya, Yog, Vaisheshik, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa, these five chapters are very important. Then pre Shankara Vedanta, we can leave this chapter, it is not required. And Shankara Vedanta is good, it is required, it is in the syllabus. Then Ramanuja Vedanta is required, and this other school of Vedanta is required. So these are the main chapters. This is not in our syllabus, Shiva and Shakta schools. And from these two chapters, post Shankara Vedanta and Buddhism and Vedanta, again, these are not required, but we will see some little bit of things out of there which will help us gain better understanding. But as such, you can ignore these chapters as well. Okay, so I think I've made clear what chapters are important in this book. Now let us start with the Charvak chapter, which is the first chapter which we'll find in a syllabus from this book. Okay, so I've already told you that I will be sticking very clearly to the syllabus and the PYQ. If we look at the syllabus for Charvak, it says that we need to know about the theory of knowledge. And as we have seen in last lecture, theory of knowledge is nothing else but epistemology. And we know rejection of transcendent entities. Now, what these transcendent entities mean, I will come to it when we will be reading the chapter. But what this really means is metaphysics of Charvak school. So these are the two things which we need to learn. Ethics of the school is not given in syllabus. You will also see that no such questions about Charvaka ethics have been asked in PYQs as well. All the questions are either from epistemology or metaphysics. But we'll still see this in the book. Only one page is given, and it will help you gain a holistic understanding about the chapter. But it's not in the syllabus as such. Okay, then let's start now. So I first want to make it clear that how you should be reading this book for the first time. You can be reading it for the first time by yourself only, or you can be following what I am doing here. You can be following me. But for the first time, you should focus only on understanding the concepts. Don't try to remember anything in the first go. That is not going to help. Just understand the concepts, just understand what every line means, and see the PYQs, see the syllabus, try to match things, whether what is being asked uh, in the PYQs is there in the book, where it is given in the book. Try to just have a mind map about what you can write on it. You can do this after reading the first time, after understanding the concepts, and use the book to answer things in your brain only, right? Just skim through the pages, see where it is written. Don't try to remember anything. Then you can, when you read it again, then try to remember things, okay? Because if you will start remembering from the first time, you will be setting your priorities in the wrong direction. Also, the book will have a lot of philosopher, a lot of books given. which I will be talking about, which I will be saying, right? So that they might go into your subconscious brain, and that will also make things interesting that way. But don't try to remember the name of philosophers and the name of books in the first row. You can do that in subsequent readings. Yeah, one more important thing is that this book is not very beginner friendly. Why do I say so? The first thing is the language. The language is quite difficult. It can be jarring for some people to read this first time. That is one aspect of difficulty. The other aspect is that it presumes that you have some workable knowledge of philosophy, that your basics in philosophy are already clear. So it will talk about other schools of philosophy while talking about materialism, even though those chapters are later in the book. But he will not take that into consideration. He will give the details of those chapters, those interconnections in this chapter only. So to work with that, I will try to provide a workable knowledge for anything extra that comes around, which we will get to know in the later chapters. But this will also be workable. This will only be a workable knowledge. Okay, until and unless we reach that stage that we will be in some time. Also, CD Sharma is an Advait Vedantin. So, Advait Vedanta is a school of philosophy which was first propounded by Shankaracharya. And CD Sharma is an Advait Vedantin, and when you will read this book, you will clearly see that. He never criticizes Advait Vedantin, and he always tries to compare all the schools with Advait Vedanta and why they are inadequate in comparison to Advait Vedanta. So that is why we also will need to have a workable knowledge of Advait Vedanta, and I will try to provide you that in this lecture only. You only have to keep this in mind while reading. This thing is important. There are criticisms of Advait Vedanta as well, of course there are, but CD Sharma will not be talking anything about that. And now one thing which I will like to point out, that why CD Sharma is such an important book. Because even in our PYQs, we will not see any question which will be asked about criticizing the view of Advait Vedanta. Like there are questions specifically given, which will I will show you. So if you will see here, they are asking to critically examine the Jainism view of philosophy. Relativism of Jain philosophy cannot be logically sustained without postulating absolutism. So they are asking for criticism of Jainism, and you will have to criticize it using the viewpoints of Shankaracharya only, which are given in this book. And they will they have never asked about criticism of Advait Vedanta or anything. So the viewpoint of UPSC examiners, or I don't know about that, but maybe the viewpoint of the academics as a whole is that Advait Vedanta is the position which they would be following. So yeah, you should keep this in mind. Okay, now let's start with the chapter introduction. So in this introduction, he has given some historical context about the materialist school. Now, historical introductions are not important. What I mean by that is no direct questions will be asked on that. As you saw in the syllabus consists of epistemology and metaphysics, and questions will be directly on that only. But even though no direct question will be from here, it will be useful for you in terms of introducing your answers. This the historical context can be used in introduction, and also it will give you a context, so it will make things interesting for you. So I will suggest that just give it a read for once. Okay. So the school of materialism in India seems to be very old. References are found to it in the epics and in the early Buddhistic literature. Garb says several vestiges show that even in the pre-Buddhistic India, proclaimers of purely materialistic doctrines appeared. It must have arisen as a protest against the excessive monkdom of Brahman priests. The externals of ritualism, which ignored the substance and emphasized the shadow, the idealism of Upanishads unsuited to the commoners, the political and social crisis rampant in that age, the exploitation of the masses by the petty rulers, monks and the wealthy class, the lust and greed and petty dissensions in an unstable society paved the way for the rise of materialism in India in the post Upanishadic and pre Buddhistic age. So you can, from here, get a hint about in what age materialism originated. So Buddha was born in around, I think, 5th or 6th century BC. So this is the time period which we are talking about. But materialism in Indian philosophy, has never been a force. Born in discontent, it soon died in serious thought. Though the materialistic way of life, the way of enjoying the pleasures of senses and flesh, is as old as humanity itself and will surely last as long as humanity lasts, yet materialism as metaphysics has never found favor with the Indian philosophers. Jainism and Buddhism arose immediately and supplied the ethical and spiritual background which ejected materialism. Okay, so here we can discuss a bit about materialism. What materialism actually means. So, materialism has a meaning in common language and it has a meaning in metaphysical sense. So, what materialism means in common language? This definition I have picked up directly from Google. It says the belief that money and possessions are the most important things in life. This is our modern common sense understanding of what materialism means. Now, you can say that this is a kind of a value system, right? That material possessions, money, all that is what we should aim for. So, if you have any decision to take in your life, you will take it such that you can maximize money and possessions. Okay, that is materialism in common language. Now, materialism as metaphysics. What does that mean? So, in last lecture, while talking about the problem of duality in metaphysics, I told you that human beings are considered to be made of soul and body. But in a lot of religious texts and in a lot of philosophy, this is what the conception of humans are is like. So, and matter itself is said to be made of atoms. In Indian philosophy, the it has always been taught that matter is composed of atoms, and generally there are five kinds of atoms which are believed to be there: air, fire, earth, water, and ether. So these all we will learn later. This is just for making you aware about it. And also, matter has an attribute that it is extended. What extension means is that it has some dimensions. It is there in this space. Whereas soul is said to have the attribute of consciousness. Soul is unextended. So soul doesn't have any kind of extensions, any kind of dimensions. This is the general view that has been taken in Upanishads, that is there in the Christian thought as well. And that is why matter and soul are completely different, because one is extended, has dimensions, whereas the other is unextended, has no dimensions. So materialism as metaphysics here means that no substance or reality like soul exists. Everything is made up of matter. This is what materialism as metaphysics means. I hope that is clear by now what materialism is as metaphysics. Okay. Then Brihaspati, a heretical teacher, is regarded as the traditional founder of this school. His sutra, which we have no reason to doubt, has unfortunately perished. Sometimes this Brihaspati is equated with the teacher of gods who propagated materialism among the asuras so that they might be ruined. Charvak, after whose name this school is so called, is said to be the chief disciple of Brihaspati. According to another view, Charvak is the name of the founder of this school. According to still another view, the word Charvak is not a proper name, but a common name given to a materialist, and it signifies a person who believes in eat, drink, and be merry, or a person who eats up his own word, or who eats up moral and ethical considerations, or a person who is sweet tongued, and therefore whose doctrine is superficially attractive. Another synonym of Charvak is Lokayat, which means the commoner, and therefore by implication, a man of low and unrefined taste. Nastik Shiromani or arch heretic is another name for a materialist. In Ramayana, they are called fools who think themselves to be wise and who are experts in leading people to doom and ruin. References to them are also found in Mahabharata and Manu Samhita. In Madhyam Nikaya, we find a reference to Ajit Keshambalin, a materialist, probably so called because he must be having a blanket of hair with him, who believed only in perception and in four elements. So they believe in perception and four elements. We will come to this later when we will talk about their metaphysics. Shantarakshita, just for your information, I'm telling you that Shantarakshita is a Buddhist and he is Swatantra Vigyanvad Buddhist. So we will read about Swatantra Vigyanvad later in schools of Buddhism. Also, I will once again try to emphasize this that just hear these names for now. Don't try to remember them. Don't try to get bogged down by them. They are not important. It's just that you should read things once just to get the background, just to get the interest. So, what we are seeing is that the history of Charvak is not very clear. This school has no literature left, no primary literature left, which is written by someone who has been following Charvak. At least not some ancient literature. We have a lot of literature about Buddhism. We have Upanishads, but we don't have anything about Charvak. So whatever we know about Charvak is from other schools. And of course, other schools, when talking about Charvak, will not be praising them. They will be criticizing them only. So we have a very narrow viewpoint and limited viewpoint available of the Charvak school. You might be seeing how such negative connotations are attached with this school, right? That they are sweet tongued, that they are fools, and all these kind of things, that they are heretics. Yeah, it is given here as well. No original work of this school is extant, with the single exception of a much later work, Tattva Simha of Jayashri Bhatta, published by the Oriental Institute of Baroda in 1940. It is therefore very difficult to have a correct idea of it. Our chief sources of information are given in the works of other schools, but this is done only to refute materialism. Thus, we find the tenets of materialism often misrepresented, right? So, we don't have a clear picture of this school. The weak points in this school are exaggerated and the strong points are omitted. So, we get only a faint caricature and not a true picture. The Sarv Darshan Sangrah. Again, this is an important book, Sarv Darshan Sangrah. It was written by Madhvacharya. You might have heard of Madhvacharya in your history books. He was a Bhakti saint. We will read about him later. He followed the philosophy of Dvaitvad. So he wrote a Sarv Darshan Sangrah, which meant he talked about all the philosophies, all the extant philosophies of his time in this book. The Sarv Darshan Sangrah gives a summary of this school, but that too seems to be based on such accounts. It is indeed very difficult to believe that materialism, which has allowed the status of an independent school in Indian philosophy, should be really so crude and degenerate as it is painted. But the absence of the original works, we have to remain satisfied with these meager and one-sided accounts.